Um, you guys will soon realize public speaking is not my forte. But what God's done for me, I can't hold it back anymore. I have been on a 8, 10, 12-week journey that God's taken me on. And I wish I could take everything that I had and He's given me and consolidate it in probably an hour, but I can't. Standing up here is, I should be nervous, I should be, and Satan's told me all these things. But today, I'm going to tell you a story of how he was defeated. This may go long. I've told myself not to look at the clock because Satan's told me there's too much here to fit. You don't need to do all this. So, as Keith says every week, I'm going to let you go because your chicken's going to burn. I'm sorry. Today your chicken's going to burn. But because of that, and it's my fault your chicken's burning, I've got gift cards for everybody for lunch. They're good for today only for Chick-fil-A, and they're sitting out here. So, a few weeks back, Chris had finished his Wednesday night class. I was in there talking to him, and he was asking me some questions, telling me some things about what's been going on in his discipleship class on Friday nights. And it is really cool to see what's happening. And he'd asked me, he said, I think your testimony could be a help to somebody. And he'd asked me where we could find it. And I'd shared it back in 2018 here. We couldn't find it online, couldn't do any, wherever, YouTube, Facebook, it'd been taken down for whatever reason. But a couple of weeks before that, God had been laying on my heart to share my testimony again. And that following Sunday, I went and talked to Keith and Chris in Keith's office and said, God's asked me to share my testimony again. I didn't know when, didn't know where. And there's a reason, and I'll tell you later in my testimony why today's the day. And it started me on this journey, and what God has poured into me in these last 8 to 10 weeks has helped me probably more than it will help anybody. As I went through my life, I didn't know, I'd been to church, and there were things that we were taught in church. You just give your heart to Jesus and all your worries are gone. And when I did, mine weren't. And I didn't know how to take all of that and put it into context of why didn't it? And Satan just kept telling me, well, you didn't, it wasn't right. You really did not accept Christ. If you had, you wouldn't be feeling this way. The journey that God took me on, I have taken what He's given me and we've put it in the bulletin. I had them put it in the bulletin, the whole insert, front, inside the bulletin and on the back, is the study that God sent me through in this last 8-10 weeks. I can't go through all of that today. If it's something that you want to talk about or study, every verse, everything he has given me, consolidated down, definitions is in this. I'm going to hit the highlights of that today. He gave me three things: purpose, the full armor of God, and sanctification. Those three things are what I didn't know and understand when I accepted Christ, because all of my troubles weren't gone when I did. I didn't know that he had given me a purpose, and the journey of that purpose wasn't going to be easy. I didn't know that I was supposed to put on and figure out how to put on the full armor of God. I didn't understand what sanctification was and how the process worked. So I'm going to read just a few Bible verses here. The way this is laid out in the bulletin for you is I've got purpose. I'm going to read a couple of verses, and then underneath that is other verses that reference the same thing. I'm not going to go through all of those. Underneath that is a definition of what purpose is. The full armor of God, I'm going to read that. I've got in here other verses that talk about the full armor of God and definitions for each one of those. This is something you can take back and read later. For sanctification, I have the definitions and the verses in here, and then other verses that go along with that. These verses that I have kind of in there and they're highlighted are ones that stood out to me. So I'm going to talk about purpose. Romans 8:28. We've all heard this verse. And if you'll look here, I've got so many Post-it notes in here, so y'all bear with me. I've posted on every page, and I've tried to color code them. I tried to do everything, and I'm still struggle sometimes to get to the point I need to be at. Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. Another verse that goes along with this is 1 Corinthians 3:8. And this right here, this verse that he gave me, I spoke to Chris's discipleship class Friday night. And Tammy got a call yesterday, and I got another call yesterday. And what happened and what we talked about Friday night is already starting to fulfill this verse right here. The one who plants, the one who waters, work together for the same purpose. Again, there's a definition in here. There's other Bible verses for purpose. That's the highlight I'm going to hit today. Full armor of God. Keith has preached on this. We all know it. But I didn't understand it. I'm going to read the whole verse here on the whole armor of God, or the whole chapter here on the whole armor of God. And I'm going to highlight just a couple of things. A final word. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. For we do not fight against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in the dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so that you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will be standing firm. Stand your ground. Put on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes with the good news so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Put on salvation as your helmet and take up the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word. This last verse is key. Pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere. Those all believers is the church. That's what God has built, is the church. There's another verse that goes along with this. 1 Peter, or a couple of verses. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 11. So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time he will lift you up in honor. Give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares about you. Stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Stand firm against him and be strong in your faith. This is another key. Remember that your family of believers all over the world is going through the same kind of suffering you are. Years back, we did Kairos ministry at prison, at Walker State Prison, and they had a talk that weekend that talked about the church. And after that talk, you could take the prisoners, we would ask them, who is the church? And there was a gymnasium full of them. And they would say, we are the church. And somebody else would say, who is the church? And it just, you couldn't hear anything in that, but all of the prisoners, inmates going, we are the church. So when Keith's suffering, we need to be praying. When Chris is having challenges in his life, we need to be praying. If we can't stick together as a church, Satan will tear it apart. He just looks for a crack. He just looks for the tiny little crack. Whose shield is moved over a little bit to expose the heart, where I can get one of these fiery arrows in there? The last thing I'm going to go over is sanctification. This word, with my education in high school, was way too big for me. But as I read this and God's brought me into this study, I found out that sanctification had 3 stages. There's positional sanctification, progressive sanctification, and ultimate sanctification. I'm going to talk about very little positional sanctification and ultimate sanctification. What I want to focus more on is progressive sanctification. Positional sanctification is the same word, has the same meaning, is justification. Once you accept Christ, you have been justified in God's eyes. And that happens just like that. When you, wherever, if it's the altars down here, in your car, in your bedroom, no matter where, when you 100% know that you have accepted Christ without a doubt, just like that, positional sanctification happens. Progressive sanctification is the present. Once you receive justification, your progressive sanctification starts. The last part of ultimate sanctification. If you're in here today, you have not received this. This happens when you die and Christ returns. Or if Christ returns and you are raptured, ultimate sanctification happens. The word that describes this is glorification. There is a definition of that. There are verses for that. The one I want to back up on is progressive sanctification. This is what I did not understand. When I accepted Christ, I was smoking, and I took the cigarettes out of my pocket and watered them up, threw them in the garbage can. God had taken all this away from me. I walked in the bathroom and I threw them in the garbage, and everything I had was gone. And it was for about 2 hours. And that urge hit me to smoke again. And that's when that arrow hit me right in the chest and said, see, you didn't really accept Christ. It was not true. I knew it was, but I had somebody telling me that it wasn't. A couple of things I want to point out in the verses. The word mighty was in Ephesians 6. It's for good, the mighty power of God, but also it says the mighty power of the evil. So you have God on your side, but you have this enemy that is just pounding you over and over and over. And I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to fight. It also says stand firm. And if you look at the word stand firm or other words that mean the same thing, it appears in the Bible hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. If you go home and Google stand firm in the Bible or stand your ground, it will start pulling things up in the Bible. It's like, oh my gosh, stand firm. I didn't know how to stand firm. I thought all my worries and troubles were gone. I didn't know how to handle my progressive sanctification. I didn't know how to fight this. I'd gone through a tremendous amount in my life. God had a purpose, and He had a plan that I didn't see in 1988. And today, I see more of what He took away from me and the path He guided me on. I want to tell you my story today and tell you where I started and where I'm at today, but then I'm going to walk it backwards and show you the points that God has brought me from here to here and how good He is. No matter how broken you are. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I've got 2 older sisters that are 3 years apart. I've got an older brother that he and I were 3 years apart, and there were 10 years apart, 10 years difference between my sisters and him. We were your typical family growing up. We go to church every Sunday. Sunday morning, Sunday school, Wednesday night, Sunday evening, training union. And we went there, and everything looked great. It was what I called showtime. We put on a show as a family. What happened after that was a whole lot different. My parents fought a lot growing up. They would fight on the way to church. We'd have showtime, and they'd fight on the way home from church. My parents filed for divorce when I was 5 years old. And my sisters were old enough that they didn't have to kind of go through custody battles. But me and my brother Kevin had to. I needed some kind of out. It just seemed like it was in the middle of the night. I'd hear the fighting. There were plates broken. There was all kinds of stuff just happened. And I remember having a love for baseball. My love for baseball came from on Saturdays. We didn't have the MLB network where you have ball games 24/7. We got ball games on Saturday. And my favorite team was the Cincinnati Reds in the 70s. They called them the Big Red Machine. They had great baseball players, Hall of Fame baseball players. Joe Morgan, your Dave Concepcion, your Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, all of those guys. And I would watch baseball, and I'd watch the pitcher get up there. And that was the cool part for me, as I would see these pitchers stand on the mound. And they had the biggest wad of chewing tobacco in their mouth. And they'd come set, and then they'd spit. And then they'd take the pitch and they'd fire it home. Next pitch, they're doing the same thing. I started to go out and mimic what these guys were doing. We had a brick wall on the front of our house, and I would put spots on it, and I would pitch to them. I had to start using tennis balls after one of the windows was gone. But I would try to hit those spots with a tennis ball. And then I got to where I would try to get closer. How fast can I throw this? And then get into defense mode and get the ball when it comes back. And I kept doing it over and over and over. I would go down to my garage and get a broomstick. I had one cut the length of a baseball bat, and I'd throw rocks up and hit them over and over and over. I figured if I could hit a rock with a broomstick, I can definitely hit a baseball with a baseball bat. And that was my out. I played when I was 5, I played when I was 6, I played when I was 7. I played when I was 8, and then I hit 9. And it was first time that we would pitch. And I got to pitch. I played second base and I pitched. Our team that year won the league. First year I pitched baseball. Our team won the league. I've got a picture I'm going to show you. of that team. I'm in that photo, and if you're struggling to find me, I'm the one that looks like a little young Tom Cruise. But in reality, I'm the little scrawny thing on the right-hand side whose hat's too big. In the bottom right. I knew I could take my game and put it on the field and play. After we won the league, I got accepted to the All-Star team, and we started playing tournaments. And we won the tournament. We won the next tournament. Next thing you know, we had won the bid to the state championship. We went to state championship in Kingsport, Tennessee. Family didn't come because they thought we were going to go up and play 2 games and come back home. We won. The next day we won. The next day we won. That weekend, everybody come up. Saturday evening, we were playing for the state championship. And I got to pitch the winning game of our state championship. We went back to the hotel, and everybody jumped in the pool, uniforms and everything. We're just in the pool. We're pulling people out of their bedrooms and throwing them in the pool with us. All of this time, the divorce was still going on, but I had my out. I had baseball, and I felt like I was good at it. We got accepted to the regional championship. Now, we thought we were studs. When we got to the regionals, and our first draw was a team from Puerto Rico, we found out what baseball players look like. We were 2 games and gone. But we still had the championship trophy for the state. As this was going on, the court custody battle was taking place. My brother Kevin and I didn't have a great relationship with my mom. And we wanted to go with my dad. And once the court decided that the custody battle was for us to go with my mom, that wasn't what we wanted to do. Judge let us go to lunch with my dad, and we were telling him the whole time, we don't want to go with her. We don't want to go with her. We got back to the court, and my dad told his lawyer they don't want to go with her. And his lawyer went and told the judge that. The judge come back out, and he'd had enough. He said, they're not going with either one of you. And they sent us to a children's home called Bonnie Oak School. They made my mom take us home, pack our clothes, and take us and drop us off there. This next picture is my state championship team. And if you'll notice, I'm not in it. This was in the newspaper. And I had pitched the winning game in the state championship. I didn't get to be part of that because I was at Bonnie Oak School. My coach brought me my trophy. When I was at Bonnie Oak School, when we got there, my brother Kevin and I were, the age difference put him in a different home than I was. The kids that were there had been at camp. I was the only kid there. I was taken and put in this home by myself. And my coach brought me my state championship trophy. There was no one there to see me receive this trophy. and that hurt. A few months later, my mom and dad had worked something out. We were going to get out of Bonnie Oak School and go to be with my mom, but the visitation was going to be different. I started playing football, and I was at a practice one night, and I finished practice, and I was playing with some friends, and my brother Kevin was there, and I heard a commotion in the bleachers. I look over, and he's arguing with my mom. And he was using some pretty tough language, being very belligerent with her. Of course, being 3 years younger, I went over and started the same process. In a few minutes, we were in the back seat of a cop car. We were taken to the police station and then taken to another children's home called Chambliss Home. We were there for about a month, and they sent us back to Bonnie Oak School. I had started school at one school, left, went to another one, left, went to another one, and then back to the first one. I'd gone to 4 schools in less than 6 months. We stayed at Bonnie Oak School till June of '76, and my parents got back together. They had worked things out. And they did for a very short period of time, and it started again. But this time they were not going to go through the same process again. Our visitation was going to be different. We stayed with my mom. We had a neighbor whose grandson would come down and stay every summer with him. And his grandparents smoked, and they kept a lot of cartons of cigarettes in their basement. So he went in one day and stole a carton. We went down in the woods and we smoked a cigarette. I was 11 years old when I smoked my first cigarette. That started my journey on smoking. Now bear with me a second. My brother Kevin and I continued to smoke. We continued because I knew my parents weren't going to talk. We continued to do these kind of things because we felt like we could get by with it, and we really had zero respect for my mom. Kevin had a few drinks. I started drinking. I had my first beer at 14. Kevin got a car when he turned 16. That way we could get in his car now and go smoke. We could leave and go smoke down the road, come back. He had a bottle of what they call Javon Musk Oil. So we could have that in the car. We'd go smoke. We'd take that and we put it all over so we didn't smell like smoke when we got back. January 16th, 1980. Let me back up a little bit before that. We got to make our first road trip. Our first road trip was to my grandmother's house. There's a picture here of my brother Kevin and standing in front of his car, in front of my grandmother's trailer. That was our first road trip. January 16th, 1980, Kevin was leaving, and I asked if I could go with him so I could smoke, and he said no, and he was pretty adamant about me not going. I asked again, and he, being the older brother, abruptly told me, "You're not going." I think he had a date. I think he was going to meet a girl. I'm not sure. But I didn't go. Later that evening, it was a cold, rainy January night. Later that evening, we got this loud knock on our front door. I opened the door. It's my brother's friend, Johnny. And he had this look of horror on his face. He said, "Your brother Kevin's been in a bad accident. You need to come with me." And I got in the car with him as a 13-year-old and drove a quarter mile. He got to within a quarter mile of the house. I got out of the car to see this. He'd wrapped his car around the tree. That's tough for a 13-year-old man. If you'll see this last picture, if you can see it, these are old pictures. This is the driver's door open and the seat pushed a little bit outside. What you don't see is a passenger seat. If I'd have gone that night, I wouldn't be sitting here today. But God had a purpose. I became pretty angry because I had two things in life: my brother and baseball. I'd lost one of those. While Kevin was in the hospital, he turned 22. February 13th, 1980, he passed away. While he was in the hospital, the school had baseball tryouts. I had missed them, and I went and talked to the coach. "Hey, is there any way I can try it?" And he told me, he said, I heard about your brother, and I'm sorry, but we've already picked the team. And I just lost two things. I didn't play baseball that year. The following year I did, but my smoking had gotten control of me. Again, at 14, I started drinking. I played baseball 2 more years. This next picture is the final year I played baseball. I'd taken everything I'd worked for, and this was it. It was gone. I started playing in the band. I started playing drums. Drums became my new out. I had a neighbor who had started to drive and had some friends that had access to alcohol. We would get out of school, get a 6-pack, drink 3 beers. I'd go home and play the drums, hours and hours. My mom worked second shift. I went to school during the day. That is not good for a 15-year-old. I had continued this path. We would cruise back then on Friday nights, and we needed 3 things to cruise. We needed alcohol, we needed cigarettes, and we needed gasoline. We had money for 2 of them, but didn't have money for the third one, which was gas. So we had a piece of a garden hose in the trunk of his car. And we would go down Brainerd Road, find cars that were secluded, stick the rubber hose down in the gas tank, pull it out, see if it's wet. If it is, we'd stick it back down there and start siphoning the gas, stick it in his gas tank, and get back in and turn the key to see where our gas tank got to. Pull it out, and now we could cruise. Now we had money. When we didn't have money for cigarettes, I would steal the money. We found out that beer trucks didn't lock their doors. You pull up beside one, raise the door, cars running, get out, grab one, take it, throw it in there. I continued this path. My dad moved, bought some property in North Georgia, and he moved. Now I was going to have to change schools again, and I changed schools. Reluctantly, but I did. I think he felt like where I was at, I needed to get away from that influence, and I did, and he was right. I didn't understand that. I started going to Lakeview High School. I was in Coach Liner's homeroom class. Coach Liner is kind of a softball legacy in this area. And they put us in alphabetical order. My last name's Davis. There's this cute little girl sitting behind me. And I was shy. I did not want to open up. I didn't want to talk to anybody because of what my past was. I didn't want people to know that. I started opening up to her. And one day she wasn't there, and the next day she wasn't there. She finally come back to school. And she was sitting in class behind me, and in a few minutes I heard this awful noise coming from behind me that sounded like they were feeding seals at SeaWorld. And it sort of, it sounded like that. She'd had bronchitis and was coughing, and that's what it sounded like to me. So I promptly turned around and went back at her, not realizing that that was the sixth love language. There's 5, but that's the 6th one now. And today she's sitting here as my wife, the mother of my 3 kids, and the grandmother of my 6 grandkids. And she's my rock here on earth. We got married. I started having a kid right away. After our honeymoon, this is the way we started out. We come back. We had a place we were renting. The guy that owned that was an alcoholic. I'm not sure that he always knew when you were talking to him that he was comprehending everything in the conversation. We come back, and he'd rented this place to somebody else. So we got back from the honeymoon, and we were homeless. She goes to work Monday, and she lost her job. So we started out with my income at $5.50 an hour, homeless, and her pay cut in half. God had a plan. We started having kids right away. We got pregnant with our oldest daughter, Jessica. That September, I went to a conference on the weekend. Sunday morning, they had a non-denominational church service. I went down and accepted Christ for the first time in my life that weekend. I knew without a doubt that I was saved. My justification had happened. My positional sanctification had happened. But that's when the battle for my progressive sanctification started, and I didn't know what to do. We had 3 kids in 3.5 years. There's been times where we've dumped couches to find money. There's been times where we've dug under car seats, ashtrays to find money. I continued to smoke and drink. The drinking backed off because we didn't have the money for that, and I had 3 kids to feed. I knew how much overtime I needed to work to pay these bills by having 3 kids, 3.5 years. Going down the road a few years, I accepted a position. My pay started to increase. As my pay increased, my drinking increased. I had the money now to do that. In and out of church, I found out what I know today and what I did not know then, but I found out quickly. Sunday morning wasn't enough to get me through my life during the week. I thought it was. We get to church Sunday. It didn't happen. Over the years, the drinking had gotten a lot worse. I was going to NASCAR races. I had some friends that drank like I did. And we had bought a camper, and I took the camper to the race. And for Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday nights, Sundays, drinking cases of beer. We had the people that we went with had a truck they could back into the infield at turn 3 and 4 in Atlanta, and had a pedestal on the truck. We'd climb up on top of that. It looked like you could reach out and touch the cars as they went by. The reason this weekend is the weekend God chose for me to share my testimony. October of 2006, I was at a NASCAR race. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, beer after beer after beer. Sunday, we got up on the truck and we were running the pace laps. I'm 8-10 beers into the day. The phone rings, I climb down off of it, it's Tammy, and I get in the truck because they had started the pace laps. The cars were going around, you couldn't hear anything. I got in the truck, and she said, how's it going? And, of course, I'm 8, 10, 12 beers into the day. It's going great. And she said, I just thought you'd like to know. Your daughter, Haley, got saved last night. And here I sat at a NASCAR race, 8, 10, 12 beers into the day. I promised God in that car, that truck that day, that I'd never drink again. And I didn't. Got involved in church, was going to church. But I was continuing before that to drink some because I just didn't feel like it hurt nobody. I went back in March to the NASCAR race. Same group, thinking I could stand on the fence and do this weekend and do church Sunday. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, didn't have first drink. Saturday evening, the guys I was with decided it was time to go make a beer run. And we did. I went with them. They got back in the truck, and one of the guys handed me a beer, and I drank it. I got back to our camper, and I drank one more. And I don't know what happened after that. I was in the camper, heart rate out the roof, profusely sweating, nauseous. I don't know if it was 10 minutes, 30 minutes, what that was. But when I had some clarity, I heard the loudest voice in my head. God said, you promised me you wouldn't drink again. And you just broke that promise. He said, I've got something I need you to do, and you can't do it that way. That was March 2007. I've never touched alcohol again. I was on the path, I thought, to what God wanted me to do. April 2007, I wake up one night with my heart beating out of my chest. I didn't know what it was. I come later to find out that it was anxiety. I didn't have alcohol to fall back on, so Satan hit me with this one. How God did that, or how Satan did that to me, and what he told me during that anxiety period. I was scared to death I was going to lose Tammy. I needed to know where she was at all the time. I just couldn't stand her to be out of my sight. I struggled going to work. I was sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a night for weeks. I went to the doctor about it. Didn't want to go at the beginning because I'm a man. I don't need help. If the doctor told you tomorrow you had cancer, do you need help? As a man, you don't have help. You're tough. You don't need to go take care of this. I went to the doctor. I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting on the doctor. We were going to church. That's where we met Keith and Nancy. And the music director for that church called me as I'm sitting in the waiting room. I'm just sitting there like this. My heart's beating out of my chest. He says, "We don't have anybody to play the drums at her church. Would you like to do that?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't." I got help for my anxiety. A few months later, we met Keith and Nancy, or we'd already met Keith and Nancy. We were going to church with them. A few months later, my dad had a piece of property in North Carolina. Keith and Nancy, a couple of other couples went with us. And we were sitting around a campfire. My dad had split wood, and he had enough wood to burn for weeks. And we sat around the campfire. We had dinner, and Keith had told us that he felt like God was calling him back to pastor, and that he was going to start a church. And I kiddingly said, "If you ever do, let me know. I know somebody plays the drums, and I'll get you in touch with them." A couple of weeks later, Keith called me and said, "I need that number." And I just had to laugh and say, "That is me, but I've not played them since I sold them to get money to feed our kids that we had." Keith and Nancy had bought Rock Point. The process, you guys have heard it before. But December 2nd, we opened that church up. December 2nd was one of the first times in my life I ever played the drums sober. God had a plan. That was also Tammy's grandmother's 100th birthday. Tammy's mom, 2 weeks into us remodeling this, had bypass surgery. December 2nd, 2007, her mom come walking through the doors of that church, pulling the oxygen tank. She hadn't graced the doors of a church except for our wedding. Today, Tammy's mom is waiting on her ultimate sanctification because God had a plan. You guys understand some of the process since then of where Rock Point has come from. But I wanted to take you to this journey to walk you the steps back and tell you and show you all of the little things that has happened in that since that. You guys may or may not know Tim and Tracy Pritchett. They're standing back here on the back row, typical Baptist. Tim dad passed away in May. Tim's dad is someone I never met. Tim asked me to be a pallbearer for his dad. I met Tim and Tracy at Steak and Shake one night with Keith and Nancy. And Tim makes a comment at the table and then looks at Tracy and says, "I'm in trouble, aren't I?" And she nods her head, and I look back at Tammy and I was like, he and I are going to hit this off. We're going to be friends. And we have been. Tim asked me, and it was an honor to be a pallbearer for his dad, but I never met him. Tim's dad got sick, and he asked Keith to come to the hospital and talk to his dad because Tim didn't think his dad was saved. And Keith went to the hospital and talked to him. Tim's dad got out of the hospital and went home and one day told Tim, "Can you call Keith?" He calls Keith. Keith comes over to his house, and it's just Tim's dad and Keith. And Keith comes out and gives Tim assurance. His dad had justification. And Tim asked me to be a pallbearer. I never met him. Tim and Tracy are here today, and I'm going to say this is because of you guys, because of this church and how we are, who we are, and what you see is what you get. Tim gave Tracy one Sunday. If he didn't like what he saw, he wasn't coming back. And Tim's been here ever since. Now, Tim and Tracy got here because Tracy worked with a gentleman, I'll use that loosely, Bob, named Bob Flatt. Bob and Tracy worked together. Bob had invited Tracy to church. Bob and Leanne are here today because they were camping and met a couple named Jerry and Diane Knapp. Jerry and Diane Knapp asked Bob and Leanne to come to church. I worked with Jerry Knapp. 2007, when we were going to start Rock Point Church, I was talking about it at work. Jerry heard me come out to my truck as I was leaving and got in the passenger seat and said, "Tell me a little bit about this church." I told him what the situation was and how we were doing this, and we had made pencils that had our logo on them, and I handed him a pencil. Jerry Knapp was who I went to races with. Jerry Knapp was the guy that handed me the beer across the back seat. Going back a little further, I got my job at Wingfield Scale through a friend of mine named Jeff Clay. And Jeff and his wife Angie are here today. Jeff and I were renting my dad's trailer together to split the rent. There were times, and Jeff's testimony is Jeff's testimony. There were times when I would come home from school and bring a 12-pack. I would do this every night, just about it. And I had a pyramid of beer cans stacked up, playing Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, so loud, and we were trying to see how much the sound waves would take to blow this pyramid over. Jeff may or may not have participated into those empty cans. I'll let Jeff tell you that one day. Jeff had a friend named Mark Weaver who called him and said, hey, our company's looking for somebody to do an electronics job for us. And Jeff said, I'm not interested, but I'm renting with a guy who's in electronics school. Jeff was Tammy and I best man at the wedding. Jeff was Mark's best man at his wedding. In this trailer full of beer cans stacked up, the person that lived next door is Bob Flatt. Bob did not participate in the pyramid. My point is, when I walked upon that car wrapped around the tree that night, I had no idea what God was doing. That he was going to take me from there to there and to have the honor to be pallbearer for Tim's dad. You can't make it up, man. You can't make it up. I was fortunate to get to share some of this with Chris's class Friday night. The Bible verse, I'd have to look it back up, that it talks about planting seeds. Somebody plants, somebody waters. The things that have happened since Friday night, there's seeds being planted, and somebody's watering them. I gave each one of them this bracelet. Some of them say purpose, some of them say armor of God. When you hold your phone up to this, it'll pull up a Bible verse. Somebody in this church today got one of these, took it to work, and showed somebody. And they then showed somebody else. Then showed somebody else. Two of the people speak Spanish. And when she put it on there, it translates it into Spanish. Those little seeds get planted. So when you think that you've been too broken, God has a plan, man. No matter what it is. Does this look familiar to you, Keith? Vaguely. This is a little vase that Keith gave me in 2008. I've had it in my dresser drawer. This is a vase that was put back together. It's got a little chip on it here, which is fitting for me because I think most people probably think I'm not all here anyway. And it's probably from playing with mercury when I was a kid or something. I don't know. But you preached a sermon one Sunday on broken. And you threw one of these up against the wall and it shattered. But you brought this one over to me and gave it to me and said, this is what God sees. God is good. I have no idea where you're at today in your walk and your purpose and your journey and your sanctification, but I know He will bring you through it. His grace is enough. As, as I finish And I'm going to turn this over to Keith. Me standing up here today it's been a battle. But today, I was able to take the past and my sword and show you guys an enemy that has been defeated. Mike Tyson used to tell people, everybody's got a plan when they get in the ring with me till they get hit in the mouth. And because God tells me in His Word to come boldly, this is not for me. Satan just got hit in the mouth. I took these pictures to Keith a few weeks back. I wanted him to make sure that he was okay with me showing these pictures. After I showed him these pictures, he told me that we were having a baptism today. Man, you talk about bringing joy to me, that I can take all of this that I told you guys, and you can watch Satan get hit in the mouth. But you can also see him laying on the ground, and I found out Haley was getting baptized, and you might as well just walk by and kicked him while he's laying on the mat. Now, yes, that's bold. You think that may be cocky, but it is. It's cocky in this word. I want to turn this over to Keith, and I want this song played again. And if today is your day to receive your justification and your positional sanctification, or if today is the day that you understand maybe better what progressive sanctification is and what you need to do, that life is not good, troubles were going to hit, and how you battle that. If today is your day to start that, then again, God's grace is sufficient. Kristen, if you'll play that one more time, and Keith, I'm going to let you have it after this.
Right before you start, Gerald, I want you to go stand over here behind that altar. Nancy, I want you to come stand over here. If there's another man that wants to come stand with Gerald, I'm going to explain what I'm doing in just a moment. If there's another lady who wants to come stand with Nancy, that would be fine. We just need a couple. I mean, we can have it. If you feel led to come, you can come. Guys, when they play that video, here's what I'd love to do. Gerald has shared his heart. Wherever you find yourself, I agree with Gerald, whether you've never asked Jesus into your heart and life or whether you're just somewhere on the road struggling, these ladies will pray with you. There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm struggling in my journey. I'm tired. I'm weary. I'm fighting, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Men, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm a tired warrior. I feel like I'm losing this battle. And if you want some men to pray with you, you come over here. You don't have to tell them one thing, or you can talk to them as much as you want to. But I just felt, Gerald, I hope this is okay, that people need to know there's somebody who cares. And you're not coming to an empty altar. You're not coming, sometimes people go, I don't know what to do when I get there. You know what? You can come and just surrounded by friends. We're going to spend all eternity together. But between now and there, we got to fight. We got to win these battles. So I ask for us to just bow our heads and close our eyes and just listen to this song. And if you want to come and pray. You just come and stand or kneel with these guys, and they will pray with you. Ladies on this side. So as this song plays, I would encourage you, just be open to what the Holy Spirit is encouraging you to do. God loves you this morning. Please understand that God loves you this morning. You don't have to go through this alone.